I was actually 18, so I joined straight out of the out of high school.
I joined the service in the United States Air Force when I was 17.
I was 19 when I joined the Air Force Reserve.
I was 20.
I stepped in, so signed the first contract when I was 17.
I was 17 when I decided to join.
I was 35 when I joined the military.
19, and I wanted to join because I had a child at the time. I needed money to support him. I was at the back end of the recession. I needed money. The Army was something I always wanted to do.
About it, and I didn't want to be in debt the rest of my life. So I was like, you know what, man, let's go ahead and do this. Let's do 3 years. Let's get that GI Bill rocking and rolling. I'll go to college, and then that's it. That was my plan. 14 years later, that wasn't the plan.
As one, I wasn't as good academically to move on to college, but my second reason was because I did it so my friends and family didn't have to.
The recession hit California's computer industry really hard, and I had a family I needed to support.
At the time, I really had no idea how else I was going to get to the next step in life. There was no way for me to pay for college, and my grades certainly weren't going to get me into college. So.
The reason is all that is to continue my long lineage of military members in my family.
And I joined because my grandfather was in the military, and I just school wasn't my thing, and I figured I might as well join the military.
I had a little too much freedom in my first year in college. My father at the time, who actually served in the Air Force Reserve, brought me to the side and said, "Boy, you're joining up."
At the time, they wanted to move to the Philippines, and I wasn't even going to graduate high school before they moved. So I was like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm finishing high school and I'm just gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna join the military, whether you guys like it or not. Like, I'm about to be 18 soon, so peace out.
I served 4 years active duty from the years 2006 to 2010, and majority of that was overseas. And I spent my last few months stateside.
Mid 08 to beginning of 2011.
So I was in from 2003 until 2016.
So I served for 21 years. I signed up in 1998 and just retired in around the mid 2019.
A little over 5 years. I served from 2014 to 2019.
Well, I wasn't, okay, well, so yeah, 2007 to 2000, was it 14? And then I did National Guard service from 14 to 17.
I served for almost 7 years in the military when I was medically retired.
So I served for 20 years. I joined, actually shipped out in June of 2000 and just retired June of 2020.
I served from 2012 to 2017, a little over 5 years.
It's really hard to remember what the best thing I learned was, but I just know that being an MP made it like life-changing for me, because yeah.
I would say that the best thing I learned, that regardless of your background, you get to determine, for the most part, how far you go.
I would have to say I have to stick with like just general life skills, because going in I didn't even know how to wash my own clothes. So the Army definitely turned me into a grown-up, into a man, you could say.
Probably the value of family and friendship and camaraderie, I would say, is probably the most dear thing that you learn while you're in the Army. And probably, I guess, to caveat onto that, is growing the hell up.
The amazing people that I met during my time in service, even at the most shittiest places, situations, and conditions, like, those amazing people got me through a lot.
The best thing I learned about the military was the camaraderie, I think. The brotherhood and sisterhood, the real feeling of family. Some of the friendships I've made will last a lifetime.
Actually, the best thing I learned about would have to be the unspoken teamwork that comes when you all are, trained at a certain level. You're all expected to, be able to at least do everybody else's jobs. It made it a lot easier having that well-trained team in general, doing anything. So teamwork.
I learned how to have like a good bond with people pretty much from all over, from all different backgrounds and stuff.
I think there is just a sense of patriotism. I guess that's what I got out of it, was when I first joined, like I said, I only really wanted to be in for like 4 years. But when I joined and I started going through the boot camp and all that stuff, I just overall had this sense of patriotism to my country, to the cause of what we were doing in the military. And really that just carried over as I went throughout my career and just grew.
Horrible leadership and racial discrimination. Mostly the reason why I left the service. Not the racial discrimination, I can take that and stuff. But the leadership itself, it changed. It's very different from when the leadership in overseas and when I went to stateside. Like, it went to a polar fucking opposite. It flipped. I was like, what the fuck? So that's the reason why.
The worst thing. I mean, I think there's a few things that are out there, but I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is that hurry up and wait game. I think that was the worst thing for me. And I think also the physical fitness exam that they had, especially later in my career, they had, I know we all needed to be physically fit for our jobs, but I think there were some things that just didn't match up really well with the age groups and where you are in your career and in life, that I think they put too much pressure on folks, really unspoken rules behind them to make sure that you actually did this exam, instead of just looking at the holistic picture of who that individual is.
It could be both ways how you want to take this, but in my personal opinion, the worst thing I learned was the fact that I needed to take care of myself instead of expecting my leadership to help me. Like, I should have took things into my own hands a lot more than being like, hey, staff sergeant, like, how do I do this? Or and I think the reason why I should have did it that way is because I didn't have the best leadership. Everybody was out for their own stripes, so they'd be quick to burn you paperwork wise or throw you under the bus essentially. So my leadership wasn't the best. So I think the worst thing would have to be my leadership.
The worst thing was experiencing that people are out there, and even though you would consider them a comrade, a battle buddy, or a friend, anything, there's people out there that are not looking out for what's best for you.
Labeled. I was being labeled a lot.
The other side of the same coin. Unfortunately, some people that deserve to get further are not able to, and people that do not deserve to be promoted or get further slide right through.
When I was in there was a lot of pushing, being pushed over, a lot of standards being dropped, things being slid under the rug. It's all about who not what unfortunately, and a lot when it came to the Army at that time.
I learned that sometimes your leadership really isn't looking out for you, they're only looking out for themselves.
The best thing I learned about the military was the camaraderie, I think. The brotherhood and sisterhood, the real feeling of family. Some of the friendships I've made will last a lifetime. I think I'm most proud of the fact that I got to learn Arabic. I was able to learn Arabic from native-born speakers from wide backgrounds of the Arabic community. And I learned about the culture and the families and everything, and it was absolutely amazing. I don't remember a lot of my Arabic anymore, but I do remember a little. Esmi Dawood wa kuntu al-Rakib fil Jaysh al-Amriki, which means my name is David and I was a sergeant in the American Army.
Most proud of is I learned a lot about myself. That I joined, and I'm a pretty short guy, so I'm automatically a target. It's just natural shit. So I had to just show 'em I ain't no bitch and shit. So I decided to excel myself, do what I gotta do to get through it. I never gave up. I did all that not to just prove to myself that I can do it, but to also to anybody who decided to doubt me or would ever doubt me.
Actually, as small as it is, a 9-line. So quick story real quick. I was actually in Bagram, Afghanistan, and first time actually rattling off a 9-line, I did it with without stuttering, without no missed information, literally just busted that 9. I was so proud at that moment, bro. But
Most proud of being able to be one of the bridge commanders as an E3 for the MGB. That was a good moment for me. And then earning my German proficiency badge.
I guess I learned how to tackle a lot of obstacles and stuff.
The value system of the military, I would say, is probably what I pride myself the most on.
I mean, the military, or at least the Air Force itself, really gave me an opportunity to expand, what I wanted to do. I mean, joining the Air Force Reserve, I was given the opportunity to really pick my career. You really don't have that opportunity in active duty. You're pretty much just picked what you want to do. But as far as joining the reserve straight in, I was able to pick my career, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a graphic designer. At the time, they had that skill set. And so I was so thrilled to be able to join and, and really hone in on those skills.
Being a drill sergeant is probably the pinnacle of my pride of serving, because I was able to affect change at a greater level. So typically my platoon would have had 60 people. Our company would have 240 people. And if I was able to show somebody that they can improve or help somebody become better or become the person they're meant to be, and then they are able to affect somebody else later on down the line, just the amount of people that my influence could reach really kept me focused, kept me on the right track.
I learned how to fight for people, for myself.
I had a couple times I went to seek counseling. It wasn't as bad as it can get. I just was having trouble in my marriage, and actually I would say that the guidance given from my chain of command and my peers shaped how I would respond to future soldiers needing the same type of help that I needed, or more help than I needed, in the greatest way possible. Because they even, not to a disparaging manner, but they joked about it. They called it going to see the wizard. Instead of saying, hey, I got to go see a mental health counselor, they would say, hey, just let us know if you want to keep it more discreet, just say you're going to see the wizard, and boom, good to go.
Whenever I came back from Afghanistan, I tried telling them about it, but they just told me to go to the clinic and just talk to somebody. And at that point in time, I was kind of crying for help. I'm like, I'm not the same. And my leadership kind of just brushed it off. I don't know if that was just the times or anything like that, but I did. Once I came back from Afghanistan, it definitely did. And I don't think they cared as much as I wanted them to, if that makes any sense.
Did have some mental health issues, I would say, but it was nothing too serious for me to go seek help. But my leadership was always very understanding and kept an eye on myself and how I felt in certain life events.
I did have some mental health issues. I had some anxiety, some depression, some worry about my future, where I was going to go and how I was going to be able to continue on in the Army. I didn't get a whole lot of support from my leadership, except for maybe one or two people, such as Sergeant Degner, who you see in here with me. My leadership in general really cared about my mental health welfare.
Oh gosh, that's a heavy question. First, I had a really big issue, so I came out with anxiety because I had it really rough coming in the first 3 years, and I went to a lot of counseling at the time, and every time I would try to explain to my higher ups, they would just kind of brush it off. Like, they would give me the talks, but it was like, you know, like, oh, you'll get through the day. Like, tomorrow's a new day. You'll be all right. Just drink water, go exercise, or go do PT. So yeah, I mean, they were supportive in their own way, but it wasn't the support that I needed.
Ooh, that's deep. No, I would say yes, I did, and I currently still do.
2 years into service, I got diagnosed with a few things, and I remember I had to go to therapy for those things, and they were not supportive.
When I was in, no, I did not. But however, if I did, I believe that I would not have support.
So, I mean, this was a tough question for me personally. I was trying to think about it, and I don't think I had too much of a mental health issue per se while I served. Although as I started to think about it, and I started thinking about my deployment that I had, about 8-9 years ago, and really that transition of coming home, I talked it over with my wife, and my wife actually pointed some things out to me, and she said, you did have a little bit of a hard transition coming home at that point in time. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I guess there were, signs of like a car backfiring that would just kind of jolt me at the time. So I guess I really had a hard time just transitioning from that deployment world, of being in a, war zone to, okay, now we need to get back to life and everyday things. And, really, I didn't really bring that up to like leadership because I felt like I had so much support at home, with my family and friends that really helped me kind of get through those tough times.
Yes, I have. And I believe any veteran who ever experienced trauma, both mentally and physically, during their time of service, especially those who been in a combat zone, should take full advantage of health services from, the VA or any other organizations that supports veterans and stuff.
No, I have.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
I sought it afterwards. I do see therapy now. I talk to people now that, you and other guys that I served with.
I have.
Okay. It was a fleeting experience only because I have a short temper, and having to explain myself over and over and over to the same person, and then over and over and over to another person, and just that cycle being repeated. It's kind of hard to stay in it for me. So, I mean, I've looked into it. I've talked to a couple people, but I just can't stay in it right now.
I did, and I continue to. I've seen therapy. I've been with some support groups, and I talk to friends and veterans in other communities such as Stack Up and Twitch, where I've found awesome communities of veterans.
What I have to live with after, I guess, maintain friends that I had, but the ones that didn't make it, I think that was the most hardest thing for me to live with, the friends that I lost.
Doing things for yourself, planning wise, because nobody's there to tell you what to do, what to wear, where you got to be, what time.
I guess being away from my daughter for the year and a half for that tour in Korea, that was probably one of the hardest.
Definitely my PTSD and the now mental issues that I got from service, and the loss of friends.
Slow down. Making it back. There's a lot of times where I blame myself. There's a lot of times where I've gotten into this funk where I just spiral, and I, kind of like try to value my existence over the ones that have, passed, whether it be warfare or, suicide, because it's definitely a thing for us. But that's probably it right there. Just making it back. That's probably the worst thing I have to think of.
I don't feel as much of a man or a father as I used to be. I'm not able to do all of the things that I used to be able to do with my kids. I can't get up and go play with them. I can't have physical fun with them. I can't even go out and do big adventures with them or activities such as like visiting aquariums and visiting these other things. I just don't have the ability anymore to do those things, and that's really hard.
The hardest thing that for me transitioning out of being serving for 21 years was just really being part of something that was bigger than myself.
I feel that if I were more well equipped and had the knowledge specifically about mental health needs and the avenues or the places that to get people to the right person to help them, I feel if I had that knowledge earlier in my life, I could have helped a lot more people instead of just toward the twilight of my career.
The PTSD, most likely, I'd say, is probably the hardest thing to cope with. And I guess it's kind of a mixture of two other things. It's kind of the camaraderie or lack thereof, along with survivor's guilt. I'm true to myself. I don't blow any smoke up anybody's butt. I'm going to tell you how it is, whether you like it or you don't like it.
I'm a very passionate person. I know I can be intense, but I mean well.
Give me time, give me patience. I'm doing the best I can. Everything's a lot harder now after I got out, and sometimes I just need a little more time than I used to.
I would just say, give me a second to breathe, because once I get hot, there's like no talking to me, honestly. And you know how I am. I'm a good guy. I need a chance to breathe. as in your face as I am, whenever it gets to that point, it's just like, can you just give me some space? But I just don't have the breath to say that. So that would be what I would tell them.
Oh man, this is one of the questions like from your interview, kind of like baffled me a bit because, okay, so if you're perhaps a civilian friend or acquaintance or family member, whatever stranger, it's hard. It's very hard to explain what myself or somebody else experienced during service. So I don't really talk about it if I don't have to, because I did one time tell like my family and a few of my friends that weren't in the military, that weren't veterans, about what I've gone through and what I did. And my family, it's hard to hear this, but they thought I was mentally insane and that I should seek help. Like, not the help where like, oh yeah, go sit down. It's like, with a psychologist. No, like literally turn me into a freaking cuckoo house kind of thing. And you know what? I hated it because like the way they look at you, like the people can't relate. They look at you with confusion and pity. And I really hate it. It kind of like fucks with, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, that's the reason why I don't really talk about it much.
Deployments were really hard. And that's one thing I could never talk about with my family, especially because the first time I've ever tried to explain to them, it was just it was just so shitty. Like I just went into a dark hole after my first deployment, and from that point on, it was just, all right, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And if anyone wants to know, then if I feel comfortable telling them, then I would, you know.
I guess the one thing that I would say for people to understand me now is just, you know, I've gone through, just like, you know, a lot of people, the ups and downs through life, and I think a lot of those things just really morphed. I had to go through those things to morph myself of who I am today. You know, I always give this great analogy of, you know, life that is basically a batter in a batter's box. You know, when a wild pitch comes and knocks you down on the dirt, you know, it's up to you to kind of pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back in the batter's box, because who knows, that next pitch could be a home run.
So everybody likes to focus on being a veteran, and I mean, yeah, I served in the Army for 20 years, but that is not all I am. Like, that's not going to be the pinnacle of me at the end of the day. I would much rather be known as a great father or a great husband that happens to serve in the military. That's what I'd rather people look up to and aspire to be.
Fuck yes.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
In a heartbeat.
In the Army, hell yeah, dude. I loved basic training.
100%.
I would. Yes.
I think so. I put this question in here, everyone, because I thought it would be an easy, no-brainer question, especially after all of these questions that we went through. But this question has been the hardest for all of my interviewees to answer.
Every time I walked into a room, if I could, I'd probably actually, it's probably a little bit aggressive, but I'd play Nuck If You Buck by Crime Mob. Every time I walk in, I just kick the door down. Nuck If You Buck, bro. Just get ready, man. I'm gonna talk shit. Everybody in here is gonna get something. Just let's go.
The song, probably the theme song for my life, would be Holding My Own by Eric Church.
God damn. Shit. I had a few choices, but I think I'll go with My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion.
Pop Star by Drake.
I like the song Times Like These by Foo Fighters.
The whole Cardi B soundtrack.
You know what? We'll just go with it. We'll just go with probably Freebird from Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Werewolves of London, no doubt, every time.